Come, come, ye saints, no toil nor labor fear, but with joy.
Hi, and welcome to the final session today. I'm Christina Serna. I will be conducting. Before we get started, I wanted to turn the time to Hugo Salas, who has a special presentation.
We received today, and we will receive tomorrow, an amazing hospitality from Pastor Wade Wallace, who is the leader of this community of Christ, and also from Sheldon Studer. I'm going to ask both of them to come here. We have a book gift to each of you. Please come. They have been signed by a couple in person.
Florence, come on up. We're just going to sit with that.
Yes.
Florence has been most of the day downstairs, I think, helping in the kitchen. Come on, Mary, come on up. Yeah.
The lesson of hospitality that you have taught us today is moving. And thank you.
Thank you. We've got a small team that's helping out. We're still on site for another 24 hours, so whatever you need. Concierge service.
4 hours.
We've cleared off the table, the leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I've told you a story and tucked you in tight at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sets its sails to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. You can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose that special one. And the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. There are girls who grow up strong and bold. There are boys quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some follow behind. Some go in their own way and time. Some women love women, some men love men, some raise children, some never do. You can dream all the day, never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts, by games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the It's the love you leave behind when you're done.
And Tristan for that. That was beautiful. So this is the session where we invite you to come up and share your stories and basically say whatever your heart moves you to say. As conductor, I get the honor of speaking first, and I gotta tell you that if I wasn't conducting, I probably wouldn't have come up, because I don't really have, I think, anything real unique or telling to say on this topic. But because I am conducting, I dug down deep and thought about what would be appropriate and personal coming from me. And I thought about when I decided where I was going to stand on this issue. I was a young adult, and I was never really, my parents were very open and affirming, and but I was a Mormon girl, and I wanted to do what was right, and I had my church leaders telling me that homosexuality was wrong. And I had always felt uneasy about it. And I met a very dear friend of mine who is not Mormon, but who is probably the most righteous man I have ever met. And I will say that unapologetically in front of my husband, and he agrees. And he was gay. And I remember feeling conflicted about how my church leaders were telling me that he was something that is wrong. And I remember kneeling down and praying and really digging down deep for an answer to the conflict that I was feeling in my heart. And what came to me is an image of later after this life, meeting my Maker and having to explain to him why I didn't treat my friend with the love and respect that he deserved. And the only answer that I would have is because some men told me that that's the way things are. And I could not in clear conscience, I realized I could not in clear conscience do that. And that's when I decided where I'm going to stand on this, and that I'm going to be an ally to this community. And I want to say that I love you and that I cannot wait to hear your stories. So please come up here and share with us. We're really looking forward to it. I know that sometimes these meetings start slow, but we really want to hear from you. So please come up. Thank you.
I think I'm going to say what I said in Salt Lake City last November. My name is Hugo, and I am a radical Mormon. And being a radical Mormon means that just like Joseph Smith, I had my sacred grove experience and received a testimony about certain things that are important. Just like Joseph Smith, I believe in building community. And that takes us on a trip, on a journey somewhere. And just like Joseph Smith, maybe because of my views, I am going to piss off the religious establishment of my family. And that's okay. That's okay. And thank you for being here.
Hi, my name is Michael Anaskita, and I'm actually really excited to be able to stand here because it's been about 2 years since I ever thought that I could ever stand in front of Mormons again and be able to give a testimony and not have to tailor it or in the back of my mind alter pronouns or leave things out because I knew they wouldn't be approved. for the congregation. And I feel like I've shared this a few times already this weekend, or today and last night. So my story starts a few years ago. I was blessed to be a convert in the church. I had the missionary discussions, and I can remember the exact moment when I got my testimony of the church, and when the Spirit touched me and everybody started crying, the missionary started crying. I didn't know what it was, and that's the Spirit. I'm like, okay. And will you be baptized? Yes. And I served the mission, and I got to share that time and time again. And that was in Vegas, where I lived, and I served the mission in Dominican Republic. And then a number of years later, I came out here. And I was struggling with, am I gay? Am I Mormon? And I came out in college, but not to the Mormons, just to my fraternity, which, believe it or not, have been really supportive. And then I graduated, and I went and taught high school. I went back in the closet and started dating my former bishop's daughter. And she got me activated again, and I came out here and found that I received callings to organize mid-singles wards out here. Ultimately, I was called to be a high councilman in the Washington, D.C. stake. And it was towards the end of that where I started to find myself miserable again, because I was living two lives. I was like back in college, where I was being a fraternity and doing all this other stuff, and then running around with people, other friends, and trying to make sure the two never collide. And I told myself I wasn't going to do that again. And I basically moved from DC to Virginia and got released from all my callings. That was the easy way out. And took about a year and didn't do anything religious. And came out to my family, came out to some friends, some Mormon friends. They were all supportive. And then I moved in the district a month and a half ago. And I thought I was done. I thought, well, this is good. I'm not going to be Mormon again. I'm just going to check out the Foundry Church here in town. And I went there to check it out, and it was all right. It was nice, but something didn't seem right. And then I saw on Randall's Facebook this conference, and I was like, oh, crap. I was like, all right, I got to check it out. I cannot not check it out. So I checked it out, because this is kind of in the back of my mind what I've been hoping for. And during this conference, and I said this earlier, I finally kind of figured out where I need to be. I need to be me, and everybody in this stake knows what I've done, and at least the people that I've worked with. And so I'm going to go back, and I'm going to be in the pews, as they've been saying this weekend. And I'm the same person they knew before. I'm the same person who gave up and gave a bunch of talks. I'm the same person who organized singles and speed dating and whatnot. Everybody asks, why aren't you speed dating? I'm in charge. And so I'm going back. And I talked to someone earlier, and I don't want to name her name because I don't know if she wants me named, but she shared with me that it helped her out as an ally, someone who's not LGBT, to know what she needs to do. And so I'm here to say that be aware for the allies that are here, and with your friends that are also allies, your non-LGBT friends, reprimand them. Tell them it's not okay to say gay, that's so gay, or to do gay jokes. Because those of us who are LGBT, we're listening, even to our best friends, and we're testing the water to see if we can come out, and see if we can share something so personal we won't be able to share anything with, not even sometimes the Lord, to actually say, I'm gay, what do I do? So that's the best thing you can do. And then when you hear somebody, and when your friend comes out to you, don't question them, love them. And for those of us, as we said earlier, and Randall said, if you think it's your time, and you think it's okay, be in the pews. Make sure they know that it's still you. You're still the same person who served the mission. You're still the same person who was the release society president, or the secretary, or a second counselor, or a high councilman. It's still you. And you're valuable. I'm valuable. And it's taken a long time to come to that realization. And I'm thankful for this opportunity. I'm thankful for everyone who put all the effort into having this conference. And thank you, Randall, for sharing it with me. Because I will be in the pews now. And I will find out what ward I'm supposed to go to. So I can go. So thank you.
It's me again. I apologize. I already said something earlier, but is Katie Adams, and I'm not gay, but sometimes I wish I were, because I'm envious of your experiences that you get to have in this life and the growth that you get to have. And what a gift to have that. And I'm so grateful. I was always the Molly Mormon. My room was prepared, even as a little girl and teenager, just in case the prophet stopped by and needed a room to stay in. That was me. I am not joking. Anyone who lived in Utah, I didn't listen to Smashing Pumpkins, K-Star, Mormon Tabernacle Choir 24/7. That was me. Probably about age 16, I knelt down to pray at night and I said, God, there has to be more. But forgive me for saying that because I have a fullness. But there has to be more. My soul is aching for more. Please give me more. But for years I did what I needed to do. I attended BYU to find a husband, not to get an education. Not joking. I actually met my husband online because the boys at BYU were not interested in getting married yet. And so I dated online and I dated in a single sport. Anyway, so I married my husband and thus started my journey of still fighting the belief that there has to be more, but I have the fullness, so please forgive me for questioning when I already know. Well, unbeknownst to me, I knew my little brother had struggles because he was in jail at 14, or he was cutting, or he was always in a therapist, or he was always on some kind of pill, and yet he was my very best friend. I mean, I should have known then because he was my best friend. We went shopping together, and I was pregnant with my first baby, and my father came out to visit me in Utah. In Virginia here, and he said, I need to tell you a story about your brother. And at this point, my brother had healed a lot of his pain and decided to go on a mission. But he was still gay, and he told me that my brother was gay. And at that moment, I felt the chains break away. And I knew that there was more. And to this day, I praise God, and I praise my brother, and I praise all of you for teaching me, for releasing me from those chains, that there is more. So thank you, and I love you all. And keep going, because you're exactly where you need to be, and you're doing exactly what you need to do.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jerry Dale, and I am a gay member of the Community of Christ Church, so welcome here. And I just wanted to briefly tell a little bit about my story and kind of the journey of where the Community of Christ Church has been with this issue. I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma called Stillwater, Oklahoma, attended a very conservative Community of Christ church there, but it was formerly known as the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, not the Mormons. And I wound up going to our church college called Graceland University in Lamona, Iowa, and that's where I chose to come out at the end of my junior year, and found a very loving, supporting group called Gala, which is the gay and lesbian version, the Community of Christ version of affirmation. And within Gala, I really found a lot of love and acceptance and was able to really begin my faith journey as a gay man. And then continuing on, I moved here to Washington, D.C. I have a career with the American Red Cross Blood Supply. And I am always kind of moved by the gay movement, even within the blood supply. How can we do better? And the Red Cross recently launched a big diversity campaign, and we released a It Gets Better video this week. So if you want to take a few minutes and look online for the Red Cross version of the It Gets Better video, you'll see me there as well. And there's a lot of movement going on within the blood supply regarding the male sex aspect of the indefinite deferral, and there's actually an article in the newspaper this week where the Red Cross and all the blood banks are really moving more towards a 1-year deferral. So there's movement on that issue, but it's not going to be perfect for everybody. But regarding back to the Community of Christ, there's a lot of support networks coming on within the Community of Christ. We have the Welcoming Community Network, which is helping congregations learn more about what it means to be open and accepting and affirming of all people, including gays, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. And the church right now is in the discussions on having open discussions about will we accept gay marriage and will we accept openly gay members in the priesthood. And so I just ask that you hold the church up in prayers as we begin discussing that. They're doing it nation by nation. So this year, Canada and Australia are having that discussion, and the USA conference will be held in 2013. So if you could just hold us as we step forward as gay people within the congregation. This is maybe the 4th time I've actually attended church here in DC, because I've decided I need to step up and be in the pews, just like you all are saying. So I'm stepping out, I'm stepping forward, putting myself in uncomfortable positions for me, but to really speak my truth. So continue to hold us up in your prayers as well. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. What I'd like to share that's in my heart, driving here today, getting ready for the conference, I was listening to some music, just this whole theme of pioneers. I'm thinking about how appropriate that feels for me. Carolyn Pearson's poem that we sang the song today about how pioneers pack the handcarts and we walk a hard journey, and we're not quite sure where we might be going all the time, but we get up in the morning and we say our prayers and we put our face to the sun and we walk. And I was thinking how deep of an impact that has on me, reflecting on the rich culture that we come from, whether we be pioneer stock, converts to the church, Mormon or Community of Christ. We have shared roots, people here who are of other faiths, who have come here graciously to be with us. It just sunk in for me that there are many who have gone before us, who know hardship, and that we are blessed, and I feel blessed to have these stories growing up and this belief in my heart of God and how I view God and how we all differ. We might differ however we differ in religious activity or religious belief. I embrace that, and I embrace all of you, and I have felt embraced by this community, and I feel so blessed and so happy to know of the culture that we share and that we come from, and to feel the hope and to hear of the dreams that have been shared here and that have changed my life. I came out fully to my extended family this week, and part of that was because of the hope that's been instilled in me by people here, knowing that this was the right time for me to speak up and to let people who love me know that they know somebody who is gay. And I just thank you, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this community, and looking forward to day by day walking whatever lies ahead, wherever we're going to go, taking that journey with you, holding your hand. And I thank you, each and every one of you, for sharing your journey with me. One last thing, just I feel in my heart cherishing the love of family, whatever that looks like. The family I've been born to, the family that is around me, friends, people in my ward, people here in my city, embracing each other, that love of family. And that love, I feel, comes from God, and I am just so grateful for that. Thank you.
high school. I don't know if you all remember the title of the, the speaker, what his talk was. I remember ours. It was called Random Thoughts. And that's why I love these meetings, is because of all of these random thoughts. Now, this isn't as wild as some fast and testimony meetings I've been in, but I think we can take it up a notch. And so I just want to tell you, I love this group of people, because without you, I wouldn't be where I am. And walking into the Kensington ward on a Sunday morning is a joy, because I know you're with me. And I just love the confusing situations that it puts the people in the Kensington ward in. I'm glad to be a riddle. It really does give me great joy, because when they figure me out, they'll figure themselves out. And I think that's just a great thing to have happen. And there was a time when I was an ex-Mormon, and then I was a former Mormon, and it just feels so good to be a Mormon.
Thanks, Happy. You inspired me, because I would consider myself not Mormon, and not really sure why I came, but it's interesting to sit here and see all of you guys so happy. And Mitch and I had a very long conversation in the hallway. Someone said earlier, I think, what's your name?
Hugo.
No, I'm sorry, right behind you. Jana or Karen? Katie. You talked about hope a little bit, and I guess that's for me what you guys all represent. Just quickly, my story. I am from Salt Lake. I grew up right in the middle of it all, on the East Bench by This Is the Place Monument, and went to East High School, the high school musical school, and was very, very active in the church. Went to BYU, served a mission in Trinidad and Tobago. That's how I actually know Rich Ramatar and Brad Wood. I actually picked up Brad and took him to his area in Suriname when I was an AP on a mission for a year. And came home, taught at the MTC for a couple of years, was an anchor on KBYU television, very, very dyed in the wool. And as most of you who are gay or lesbian or even allies, stories you've heard, knew when I was 7 that I was different, and then when I went through puberty, figured out that I was gay. And throughout the situation, I was the happiest guy you'd ever meet. Always smiling, always thrilled, bore my testimony every Sunday. Really loved it absolutely. And but in the back, there was a deep sorrow deep down inside of me, because I hated myself. And so I fell in love with a guy at BYU because he was in my class and I thought he was great. And then we ended up being in the same ward in Salt Lake after we graduated. And we became very close. And he got married to a woman, and I was heartbroken, so I went and talked to my bishop, and he sent me to reparative therapy at the church office building. And what's interesting, and this is the funny part of my story, is I hated myself until I went to reparative therapy. And what the church did for me is it taught me to love myself, in spite of being gay, but that's better than hating yourself, right? And what's interesting is then it took me on a journey of actually leaving the church, because once I loved myself and truly loved who I was, I wanted to love myself because I was gay and not in spite of it. And so I took a journey which ended up me coming out of the closet at 32, and I had moved to Northern California for a job. And actually, that's how I met Barb, as I was in her ward in Palo Alto First Ward. And I came out and I that day I told my bishop I took my garments off. It was funny because I was 100% home teaching, and I was telling him that I was 100%. It was a march, and I told him I'm 100% home teaching, and I said I'm leaving the church. And I left that day. He gave me a blessing. He blessed me I'd be happy, which I felt like was the right blessing. And I took my garments off. I went up into Lake Tahoe. I cut out the symbols. I sobbed my eyes out, and that was it. So, I spent 8 years hating the church, despising it. And I can't say I love it now. I don't think I hate it, but I hated God for a few years until I decided I didn't believe in him, which I still don't, honestly. And I just felt really ripped off. You know, I gave 32 years of my life, everything I had, everything. And all I wanted was acceptance. I just wanted one thing. That was it. And they couldn't give it to me. And my parents couldn't give it to me, and they still can't today. We don't speak much. I've been with my partner for 6 years, and they won't say his name out loud. A monogamous partner, which I think is actually important in our community to say out loud. And today, I live my life with my own value system. And I have a very strong value system that I follow every day. And it's because of my heritage that I have that. 2 months ago, or a month and a half ago, when Chris Beers killed himself, and I don't even know him, but when it was posted on Facebook, and I saw his face, and he was 38, something happened inside. And I thought, I'm done. I'm done being away. It's time for me to come back. So here I am. And I don't know what it means. And I feel like usually when people stand up and bear their testimonies, they're like, I'm on the way back, you know? Here we are. Well, I'm not. I just made a tiny little strategic move to come here. I don't even live here. I live in San Francisco. But it's my tiny little mustard seed that has always been inside here, I guess, somewhere. That I feel like I'm a pretty healthy guy. You know, I'm psychologically pretty solid. You know, I mean, I love myself a lot. So maybe it's time for me to start helping people like me, those who wouldn't honestly come to something like this because we have so much anger in our hearts and so much bitterness. And maybe it's time for me to start helping some of those people like me who haven't seen a building like this in 8 years for me, 15 years for others. You know, maybe that's what I can bring. You know, a perspective of someone who actually I don't even know if I'm a believer because I just don't know. So anyway, I just wanted to come up and say thank you because you guys have given me hope, and it's been a really special day. So I appreciate you guys helping me to maybe start a journey to somewhere new. So thank you.
When I was about 12 or 13, I got this letter from my grandfather, who I'm named after, Alan Davis. And it was a pretty extensive letter explaining in detail the church's position on homosexuality and him noting my parents' concerns about things, which as I look back on it now, I feel if I were gay, that would have been even more traumatizing than it already was. But the kind of scar that it left, it's a little hurtful, like, to think about it, but I think, about my parents trying to wrestle with probably being concerned about me and not understanding why their 12-year-old son was saying so much about how it didn't make sense that gay men and lesbians couldn't get married if they wanted to. That I felt like that made so much sense, and that I felt that my faith tradition had taught me that that was fair and that would make sense. And thinking, how am I this man's namesake? But then going and living so much of a traditional correlated Mormon lifestyle, in going to BYU and serving a mission, and not completely abandoning my positions or beliefs in fairness, but not advocating them the way I did as a 12-year-old child, not standing for what I knew was right. My roommate, right before I left BYU, was one of the founding members of the Understanding Same-Gender Attraction at BYU that eventually made the It Gets Better video that was done by BYU students. And I was torn. Like, I wanted to be more supportive, be more part of that group, be more involved in getting things done, meeting with university representatives as they were trying to do, but I was so concerned and conflicted about how I harmonized that with my beliefs in the LDS Church. And eventually getting to the point where I looked at it and realized I feared man more than God. For me, that's how I feel about it. And I think about it, Alan Davis, my grandfather, was also a man who not only raised 5 children, but then adopted another 5. And when his children brought friends home, he helped take care of them. Some of them joined the church. Sometimes when some of those children joined the church, their parents kind of disowned them, some figuratively, others literally. And my grandfather took them into his home, and he helped take care of them and helped feed them when their parents wouldn't. That's also Alan Davis. And he was a medical doctor, and I'm in a PhD for theater, so I soon will be Dr. Alan Davis too, in a different way. But I think it's both of those things. That's the version of the Alan Davis, that Mormon strength and everything that I think has taught me about what my morality and values are, that really helps me believe that there can be redemption and reclamation for years of silence and fear, and for some hurtful letters that were written in the past. But that Alan Davis is something that can be a force of good. And I'm very grateful for this community that has reminded me and helped remind me that I knew what was right a really long time ago. And I thank you for that.
I'm Crystal Scott. I joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in 2004, and I was a grad student at UVA, finishing up my graduate work in a developmental biology lab, when the missionaries came and knocked on my door, and they were very sweet, but I always felt sort of a little bit outcast because I was one of those dirty single mothers. So I feel like I always was sort of taking a critical look at a lot of things, and then I was told a couple years after I joined the church over the pulpit how I should vote on marriage, and I kind of thought, that's a little bit weird. And then it happened again. It happened 3 times total. And so I started doing a lot of research about why this would be the case, and I just was left confused, but I left it alone. It didn't affect me At that time, I actually found a husband who agreed to take me in, even though I was a single mom. So it didn't really affect me personally, and I just kept my views quiet for a long time. And then there was a certain talk given in October of 2010 at General Conference that changed my life in an instant, and I realized I did not believe a lot of things, and I actually stopped going to church for about a year. But I really miss the community, and my husband is 4th generation Mormon, so his family was really hurt. They were crying for us. So I started going back to the church a little bit at a time, and that's where I met my friend Katie, who is actually transitioning out when I was transitioning back in. And we became really good friends, but I became discouraged a lot. And then last summer, I had heard about this guy who'd been called into the bishopric who said that he was openly gay, and I was like, there's no way. So I started learning about him, and I was reading his personal page, which is mitchmain.com, and he had all these beautiful, wonderful, articulate things to say, and I was so impressed. And I started telling my friends about this man, and then he joined a Facebook page that I was a member of, Feminist Mormon Housewives, and he said he was very happy to be there. And I was like, I really like this guy. So we started talking a lot. And what really changed my opinion about my membership in the church was how Mitch was able to love the Savior, have his own personal definition of what that meant for him. And that meant when he was, this is an issue that affects him so much more than me, then I could be someone who was involved in the church in a very different way, but in a way that I was defining what my relationship is and what I do. And it's been a really great thing to not be scared about who will find out that I'm a member of the church. While at work, I'm a professor at James Madison University. And it's been really actually quite liberating to say that I'm a Mormon, but also to be able to build up people, and particularly certain students of mine who are gay, lesbian, and who have these issues, and they know that I'm not going to judge them. So what I say to you is I wish that there were more allies like me in the audience. I want to just wrap you all up in a big hug. I feel such love for you. And I'm so grateful to be here. I think that this is the way that the world is changing, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. I wish that it would have happened 20 years earlier, so it's not so heart-rending for all of us, but I'm here for you, and if you need a sister, I'm a great sister. So just call me, email me, Facebook me. I'm a good sister. So thank you.
Really frightening to me right now. But it's a beautiful day to be here. I had no intention of coming up, but hearing your stories, and actually hearing your story, I want to say Will, but I'm not sure what's Will. It's wonderful to hear these stories. And I think that it's important that we share these stories, because I think it builds us up. And I think there's so much positive that comes from it, and we need to hear that. I left the church in March of 2005. And it was a wonderful decision for me. It was a good thing for me. And I left it full, and I really left it. And I left Utah, and I drove cross country to DC, and I got a job serving cocktails at a bar. And for several months, I remember I had this stage in my life where I no longer had the church community that I had spent my life loving. I didn't have the same family community or friendship community. But for the first time in my life, I was full and I was authentic, and I was so wonderfully fulfilled by that. And I remember thinking, it's so odd that at this stage in my life, when I have so few people that I could actually go to and draw for support, I feel more happy and comfortable than I have in years. I don't think that's a good thing, though. I don't want future generations of Mormons to have to go to that stage to find that. And during that stage, that was 7 years ago, and it's been like an unraveling of issues, of course, in my own life, and dealing with my own history of Mormonism, and trying to re-identify the good things that I do want to have in my life. I remember for a while I started going to St. Thomas, which is a Episcopal church down by DuPont Circle. And I remember the moment during one of the services when I said, and I realized God loved me. And that was such a big moment in my life to know that. And I think that it's important that we remind ourselves of that often, and I think it's important to remind each other of that. So, at risk of sounding like a testimony, I do believe that God loves us. And it takes us sometimes a long time to get to that conclusion. But I believe that very strongly, all of us. And I thank all of you for being here, and I thank Mormon stories, and not just Mormon stories, but people like Carolyn Pearson and Mitch Main, who I think are changing the tide of Mormonism so that that message can get to our gay brothers and sisters. That's the message that we need to hear for ourselves, we need to share with others, that God actually does love us. Last thing I just want to share is Carolyn shared a poem last night, and I think it was called The Trial Number 5, but it ended with the phrase, "Come out alive." And then she added, "and thrive." And I think of us in this room, for the most part, we've all come out alive. And many of our brothers and sisters haven't. I think that, and I'm hopeful that's going to change someday, that we may all come out alive, and that we may also thrive. And thank you all again for your friendship and your support, and just being out there and letting us all know that we are loved. Thank you.
My name is Kate Kelly, and I'm a straight ally. 2 years ago, I went to a funeral of an extended family member. He was gay, and he committed suicide. And I was very disappointed at the funeral about the way that his life was discussed. And the general message was that his being gay was a trial for his family, and that his being gay was a burden for them. And I was struck by the catch-22 that Mormon people feel, that they can't accept gay people and be Mormon. And it was that day that I decided we need to change our minds. And when I did my panel, I introduced myself as someone who is openly choosing a Mormon lifestyle. I think we need to think about who's choosing a lifestyle. And choosing Mormonism is a choice. And choosing the kind of Mormonism that you live is a choice. I don't think we think about that we have choices in Mormonism. I think we take it or leave it, and that's not true. We have a choice. And knowing gay Mormons has taught me that for many cases being gay is not a choice. But to me it doesn't matter. I don't care if you choose it or if you don't choose it. To me it doesn't matter. You should be able to choose to love whoever you want. So I don't care if it's something that you're born with or something you choose. It should be a choice that you make. And as straight allies, we need to change our paradigm. We need to be paradigm pioneers, and we need to speak out and tell others that they have a choice. They are the ones who have a choice to choose what to believe, and I don't believe that being gay is wrong.
My name is Rob Lauer. I converted to Mormonism. I became a Mormon in November of 1976 when I was 17. I became a Latter-day Saint, a member of the LDS Church in June of 1977, at age 18. Those are two different things in my mind. I was raised Protestant, and very early on, through my own studies of the Bible, my own contemplations, realized I just didn't accept Protestant theology. Came across Joseph Smith in American high school history, was fascinated, studied his theology for 2 years, no thought of the LDS Church, of joining the Mormon Church or anything, just discovering the religion. And basically converted to Mormonism, which I define as accepting myself as a child of God, eternal, had a pre-existence, and here, and my goal is to become like my heavenly parents. Caroline, I remember the first thing, when I first became aware of you, right, when I joined the church, I came across one of your poems about a child just being born, just having been in heaven and being born. It just touched me. But I was a Mormon before I was a Latter-day Saint. Latter-day Saint was joining the LDS Church. And I was enough of a Protestant, despite the fact of rejecting Protestant theology, that I sort of accepted the Protestant idea that my relationship with God had nothing to do with an institution, with a priesthood, or with ceremonies and ordinances. So I converted to the LDS Church, went to BYU 4 years after, later left the LDS Church for a decade because of BYU, the whole experience. Going on under all of this was the fact that I was closeted and gay and struggling within myself. Someone spoke earlier today about not wanting to hurt knowing the pain that their coming out was causing their parents. That was what kept me in the closet. It wasn't the issue with God, it was, I know my parents are going to blame themselves because of what society was saying at that point. And so I stayed in the closet for my parents' sake. Anyway, 10 years later, after leaving the LDS Church activity, I came back to the LDS Church with the idea I can go back in the closet, I can be celibate. And I was very active, great callings, went to the temple, all this, and by 2001, I was in Colorado at a film company working and going to church to teach elders quorum every Sunday, angry as hell that I had to go there because, and lonely, for the first time myself, so lonely, and I realized it was because of my sexual orientation. And so I was still struggling with that. And in January of 2003, I was standing in Barnes & Noble and came across Andrew Sullivan's book, Virtually Normal. And in the first few pages, he talks about growing up gay and devout Catholic in England. And I suddenly realized that I just am gay. Up until then, I thought, okay, my mind must be like a ball of string all tangled up. And if I could just pull out the threads that will stop my mind from being a gay mind, I can stop being gay. Of course, you pull strings, it's the tangled up strings that keep the ball together. You pull out the gay strings, the ball falls to pieces. So I realized what I've been involved with was this sort of mental, spiritual suicide. I was trying to deconstruct myself. And then it hit me, a teaching of Joseph Smith's, which was God never had the power to create.
Leave it there. Don't worry, leave it there.
Lights, is it still working?
That's fine. No, leave it there.
God never had the power to create the mind of man. The mind of man is eternal. And suddenly, God didn't make me gay because God didn't create me according to Joseph Smith. I'm eternal. And in that pre-existence, God, finding himself surrounded by intelligences, as Joseph Smith thought, decided to lay out a plan where they could progress and become like him. And it brought me back to that original Mormon paradigm that I had converted to as a teenager, which is that I exist in God's image. The purpose of my existence is to progress on to become like God. And that in the pre-existence, whenever that was, I was still who I am now. I was still gay in some way, but God didn't care. So why should I? At that very moment, I sort of became a born-again gay man. I accepted the fact that I was gay, but it was in the very instant that I also, that very instant, became a born-again Mormon in a sense. I was more Mormon. My Mormonism, my encounter with Mormonism, and my encounter with my relationship with God through that Mormon prism made me even more profoundly Mormon. And at that very same instant also I realized I could never be LDS because of the way the church was. So I left the church, I walked away from it. And I've been totally happy. I found other Mormons. The internet's wonderful. We're all connecting here because of that. but I came across some Mormons who call themselves Reformed Mormons. And we basically had gone back into the basement that the monks went into. We'd gone into the Mormon tradition, Mormon history. We reconstructed our own versions of ordinances and things. And back in February of this year, 19th February, we actually had the Reformed Mormon endowment. And we had Reformed Mormon same-sex sealings. And it was a very moving experience. We had people come from Florida, Kentucky, Virginia, Seattle, Washington, and people who've been raised Mormon, LDS, had left the church some decades ago, had gone through periods of bitterness, of atheism, whatever, but had reconnected with God through their Mormon heritage. And then we reclaimed Mormonism for ourselves. And it's very freeing. And so I'm a gay Mormon. I'm not LDS, but I'm a gay Mormon.
My name is David, and I think there's been a lot of talk in one of this, there's been a lot of talk about sitting and staying in the pews, and I think what I mentioned earlier, Michael, coming back and sitting in the pews is really strengthening. I've been sitting in the pews for a couple of years now, and I realized something. I was chastised today by a couple of my allies who told me that, why didn't we know about this conference from you? Like, we had to ask you about it. Why weren't you telling us about it? And it sort of reinforced the fact in my mind that, and the LDS principle, that progression just keeps going. One more step, one more line upon line, one more day after day. And that, sure, I was sitting in the pews, but I was sitting there. I wasn't doing anything. And so I'm really grateful for this conference because it's been able to, I don't know, rekindle the fire that was in me when I decided to be the youth speaker for an evergreen conference or fireside on the God Love His Children's Chaplain and speak right before the president of Evergreen and say to the fireside, I'm gay, I plan on finding a husband and adopting kids, and watching and hearing the three stake presidents behind me and the president of Reformation just sort of scramble, like, do we take him off the stand? What do we do? What do we do? And that sort of was my instance of sitting in the pews and letting people know. And so I think it's time now for us to, for me at least, to do more than just sit in the pew and incorporate more of what I've heard today into more of an active role. And so I thank you all for that.
My friends. My name is Spencer Clark, and for those of you who have met my wife in the back and have held my baby as she's been passed around, you probably surmised that I am one of the straight allies here today. And I'm very grateful to be here, and I'm really grateful that we get to have adult story time here. With the 2.5-year-old in my house, story time usually consists of Curious George feeds the animals, in which Curious George goes to the zoo and gets in trouble with the zookeepers for feeding all the animals his peanuts. The juxtaposition of him, a free monkey, being in the zoo observing them is his own strange juxtaposition, but I don't think any of us are unfamiliar with kind of strange juxtapositions when we discuss our issues here of gayness and of Mormonism. But I'm grateful to be here, and I have my own story of how I came to be a straight ally and why I'm happy to be here today. I grew up in a house with 5 sisters and 1 brother. My brother was the oldest. There's 12 years between us, so we didn't know each other a whole lot growing up. In the years since, become very, very close. But I grew up mainly around women. We hugged a lot. We had scriptures reading in the morning before the kids went off to seminary, so I was used to getting up early. My mom would play the piano. We'd all come and we'd sing together. Music was a big part of my family. And we'd pray and then we'd hug everyone. So I've always had that sensitive side. I have no problem hugging guys, hugging girls. I have no problem crying, as is quite obvious too. And I think that's made me open because I always felt that love in my home. And I can't imagine it any other way. So I've had experiences, of course, growing up when I was young. I don't think at 12 or younger, as someone stated, that they were thinking about, well, why couldn't 2 men or 2 women get married? I don't think I was thinking about that. I was also a pretty good Mormon, always kind of doing things a little bit on my own terms, but always at least outwardly faithful. But I've had several experiences over time, and I remember one of those when I was young, was watching the movie Philadelphia after it came out. And of course, Tom Hanks being playing as a gay attorney, of course in the closet in the earlier days of the AIDS epidemic, when not much was known about it, but of course the fear of this new unknown killer disease, about which we didn't know a lot, coupled together with our nation's uncomfort with homosexuality, of course, drew lots of tensions. And I saw that when I was very young, and then, of course, time went on. Did know some friends who were gay in high school. And then in college, I actually lived with another gay roommate with my friends from the choir. Just the 2 of us. And of course, that was a great experience. And we were great friends, and we stayed great friends. And I distinctly remember at one point, I considered who he was, and of course the many, many other gay friends I had through choir and through theater. These things have all been going around in my mind for a long time, but I realized I always had love for them. And I remember at one point in college, I distinctly felt, I need to go watch Philadelphia again. I felt like that was inspiration from God. I didn't know why. But it kind of brought this back up, and you realize, it brought back to me the pain that people felt. That was real, the misunderstanding. And while I didn't immediately do anything advocating for gay rights at the time, that spoke to me, and that stayed with me. And so, as years have gone on, I left and went on a mission to France for 2 years. And of course, I was out there trying to convert people to come to Christ, which you can only do so much of in France. You face a lot of rejection. I know what that feels like. But I served in a lot of our smallest branches in France, and so we spent a lot of time with the members. I was in the branch presidency twice, and so we got to know some of the affairs. And we did know some gay members of the church in France. We didn't talk about it much, but you could feel sometimes pain and difficulty if it was, even though they didn't really talk about it at all. But you knew. Coming home from that experience, I found that I have a different mission in calling that I feel like I have now. Prop 8 was very hard for me. I wasn't in California. I have a lot of family on my dad's side there, and I know they participate in the campaigns. I mean, Uncle Edo contributed a substantial amount of money. They'd worked on Prop 22 and Prop 8. And I don't understand. I saw the justifications that came out. I said, these just bring faults to me. They bring faults. I've known too many people. We've had gay marriage around for long enough. We have temples. We have congregations, many of them in places that have legalized same-sex marriage. And how has that hurt our families? It hasn't. The church is still as strong in those places as are there anywhere else. Hello, Canada, Mexico City. We've got tons of places. Has the church fallen apart? No. No, it has not. But what does it do? It's let those who need companionship be able to have that companionship in that same link that I have. I was fortunate to be in DC when marriage equality was voted in there, and shortly beforehand I attended a rally with a sign. I felt very alone. It said, I'm a Mormon who supports marriage equality. And not a whole lot of people talked to me there, some did. Interestingly, on my way out, but yeah, I didn't expect to be welcomed with open arms, but I wanted to make a statement, even if I was the only one there. Interestingly, Fox News did want to talk to me on the way out, and they interviewed me, and I made it onto the broadcast later. Likewise, they didn't want to introduce themselves either. He just said, "Hi, I'm from one of the local TV stations." That's not from the audience for him either. But I was happy in that moment to say, I'm Mormon and I support marriage equality. We've recently moved back to my home state of Maryland. And I'm happy to be a voice saying, no, there are Mormons who support this. I do believe that we should allow people to raise families. And I'll say what I said to that Fox News reporter too. I said, I know how much my marriage means to me. I know how much my children mean to me. And how much I learn to grow because of them. So I understand the position of my leaders of the church. I disagree with that position. And I do believe that all of God's children are loved by Him and should have that opportunity to experience the same wonderful things that I feel blessed to have. And so I'm happy to be out of the closet as a supporter of gay rights, as one pushing for marriage equality. And most of all, though, to be someone who truly is striving as best I can to love those around me. And so someday, if one of my children comes to me and says, Dad, I think I'm gay, or I think I'm lesbian, or they'll just say, I am, that they'll feel comfortable coming to me. And they will know that I will love them the same as I've always loved them. And we will continue to have a good, happy family going forward. And I hope that other people will be able to have that same experience. So now my mission is no longer walking the streets of France, but I feel like it's walking the halls of my church, or walking the walk online to help others feel again what I felt, and hopefully have that same love and understanding in their hearts, so that we can truly all be one and view each other as what I believe we truly are, and that is sons and daughters of God who loves us. Thank you.
Tina, just so you know, I think you're a lot more interesting than me. So
Thanks, girl.
Okay. Well, it's good to finish with a lesbian. So but I do kind of feel like I'm at the end of an EFY session. What a bonding experience. But I just wanted to share my story quickly, and don't want you guys to have to be checking your watch, but just because I feel like my story is pretty unique. My Mormon rap sheet, born into the covenant, primary, young women, seminary, undergrad at BYU, married at the age of 20 and a half to a man, and had a baby girl right before I turned 22. Then at the age of 23 and a half, fell in love with a woman, and had no idea what hit me and what was happening, but suddenly felt like I found myself. And then as I got separated from my husband, who I had been married to in the temple, and the backlash that came from that, recanted my coming out to my family, and excuse me, and tried to go back to being a good Mormon girl. And I went through the repentance process, and thankfully did have a very loving bishop, and will be forever grateful for him, even if I didn't feel like he led me in the direction I needed to go. I will be forever grateful for him. For 2 years, I really tried to still be a good Mormon woman, to a certain extent at least. But I had raised my daughter in the gospel. I really wanted my daughter to have that. And so anyways, my my brother came home for a couple weeks before he was going to go off and get married to his now wife, who he met at BYU. And my brother and I are just 18 months apart in age, and always grew up being best friends. And it was so wonderful to spend time with him every day, come home from work, and have somebody that I loved, that I cared about, that I could hang out with, whether we were going out or whether we were staying at home, someone we could talk to. And after he left, after I got to have that time with him for a few weeks, I realized how empty I felt. How I felt like I was just this empty shell that was trying to keep moving, but just wasn't getting to be myself. You know, I was teaching the Laurels in young women at the time. That was my calling, and my home ward that I grew up in, and my parents were in the ward as well. And after my brother left, I no longer believed the words I was trying to tell these young women. Then did come out again that was last year. But what I really wanted to get up here and say is that I'm so grateful to have felt the support today from those who are either on a similar journey to mine or as supportive allies, because as I have spent, especially the last year, at night after I get my 4-year-old to sleep, and I have spent those nights crying on my pillow. Feeling so alone and rejected from the community that I grew up in. And you know, and some of that is self-imposed removal from my community, but I'm from South Carolina. I live in South Carolina, and it's really scary for me to think of coming out to everybody there, and my home ward especially, and you know, people I grew up with say, you know, Obama's the Antichrist, and that clearly this must be the second coming, that he was elected to the president. You know, we've got all kinds of stuff where I was like, I don't know what your response to me, and you know, I felt so vulnerable about getting to know myself, especially as a lesbian who's also a mother, who also believes in a God, and that God would be a loving God, that I'm so grateful to know that there are people who care whether or not I'm crying alone in my pillow at night because I feel like I can't be Mormon and gay. So thank you very much. I haven't felt like I've been able to go to church or identify as Mormon for the past year. And this is probably, you know, I mean, aside from the tears, or in spite of the tears, the most at peace I've felt for probably the past year. So really appreciate everybody who put so much effort into this conference, and for those of you who have shared parts of your journey as well. So thank you very much.
Oh no, it's her again. I just wanted to get up here just real quick. Probably over the last 5 years, my belief system has been challenged to the point where about 1.5 years ago, I stopped attending church. My husband stopped attending about 2 years ago. And from that process, I've gone from, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't call myself homophobic, but I've gone from that process to here I am today. And I feel so much. I have lots of emotions right now, and one of those emotions is I feel so sorry. I'm so sorry that you, my brothers and sisters, I truly believe the pain that you've been through
because of people like me and because of the church. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry there are people out there who just don't get it. I'm so sorry. But if you can flip me, I think you can flip anybody.
I like that.
Anyway, but also I felt the emotion of just such love for you all and such bravery and courage. Thank you so much for teaching me. Thank you so much for being such a great example to me, and I've truly grown and I truly understand. I don't mean to say this to be Mormon-y, but I truly understand the philosophy of Jesus and love one another. I believe that with every fiber of my being. Great, now I sound like I'm testimony. Meeting at LDS Church. You can take the girl out of Mormonism, you can't take Mormonism out of the girl. I love you people, and I'm there for you. I'm 24/7, 365 there for you. If you need me, if you need a sister, if you need a shoulder, if you want to just call and sob on the phone, I'm there for you, I promise. I want to be there for you, and I want to continue to be there for you. And I'm going to say this right now, and consequences be danged. We are in sanctuary. The church is wrong on this issue of homosexuality. Completely wrong. Leaders are wrong. And I feel that so powerfully. I am not influenced by Satan. I'm influenced by God. I'm that.
Come, ye saints, no toil nor labor fear, but with joy.